Hello, this is Kenny Williamson, and welcome back to another episode of Melchizedek Chronicles. In this episode, we're going to be answering the question about will we ascend into heaven at the rapture? So the short answer to that question is yes, we are going to go up to heaven. However, we're not technically going to ascend. Now, you may say, well, isn't ascending into heaven the same as going up into heaven? Well, according to the world, the answer would probably be yes, of course. But according to the King James Bible, the answer is no. Let me explain. We're going to start with a verse in the Bible from John chapter 3, verse 13. And this is Jesus talking to Nicodemus. Okay, and he says, "And no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven." So, to break this verse down, the very first one says, "And no man hath ascended up to heaven." Well, hath is past tense. So he's saying no man has ever ascended up to heaven. Okay? Now, the very next thing says, "But he that came down from heaven." So that implies that at some point he has went up into heaven and came back down from heaven. And then the third part of this thing says, "Even the Son of Man, which is in heaven," which that would imply that he was in heaven while he was also there talking with him. So, what we have here is it says, "And no man hath ascended up into heaven, but he that came down from heaven." So, if you take that literally, that basically means that he had to have ascended up into heaven sometime before. And then we also know that he has descended or came down from heaven, for example, at one time when he was born. So he was in heaven, and he came down to be born. Now, at the end of that verse, you find where it says, "Even the Son of Man, which is in heaven." And that last little bit that says, "which is in heaven," that particular phrase is taken out of almost every other Bible that exists. And the reason for that is that that particular verse there basically proves that Jesus is omnipresent. So, in order for Jesus to be omnipresent, he must be God, which he is God. So, they took that out because they just can't believe it. They either can't believe it or don't want to believe it, but either way, they just can't seem to wrap their minds around that Jesus can be up in heaven and on earth at the same time. So, they've basically deleted it out of almost every other version except for the King James Version. So let's now turn over here to Acts 2, verse 34, and it says, talking about King David, it says, "For David is not ascended into the heavens, but he saith himself, The Lord said unto my Lord, Sit thou on my right hand, until I make thy foes thy footstool." So, right there you have it. It says that David did not ascend. And Christ said that. Christ said, "No man hath ascended." So if no man hath ever ascended, how did Moses get up there? I mean, after all, he did appear at the Mount of Transfiguration in Matthew 17:3. So we have here in Matthew, actually it starts at 17:1, but basically Jesus goes up onto a high mountain, and it says that he was transfigured before them, and his face did shine like the sun, and his raiment was as white as the light. And it says, "And behold, there appeared unto them Moses and Elijah talking with them." So right there you have Moses and Elijah showing up on the Mount of Transfiguration long after they died. So if no man has ever ascended, how did Elijah get up there? Well, the Bible says he was caught up to heaven by a whirlwind. Okay, it never said that he was ascended. And if no man ascended, how did Enoch get up? Well, part of the answer to this question does lie in the wording in the King James Bible. For example, it didn't say that Enoch ascended, it says that he was translated, and that's in Hebrews 11:5. Now, Hebrews 11:5 says, "By faith Enoch was translated, that he should not see death, and was not found, because God had translated him. For before his translation he had his testimony that he pleased God." Now, Moses, after he died, his body was taken, okay? It never said ascended. And then Elijah, he didn't ascend, he was caught up in a whirlwind. And that is in 2 Kings 2:11. And that verse reads, "And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire, and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven." So what we're finding out here is that the word ascend must have some other meaning other than just going up to heaven. And of course, it does. So all through the Bible, there have been a lot of people who have went up, and there's going to be a lot more people who go up, but nobody's ascending. Now here in Isaiah 14, verse 13, we kind of get a reason what's going on here, an idea of what's going on. This is addressed to the devil, and it says, "For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High." So this is just like all of the NASA guys trying to get to Mars. Obviously, the word ascend, now we know what it means, okay? It means to go up on your own power. So, without God. So nobody has ever went up on their own power but Jesus Christ. I mean, Enoch was translated, Moses was taken, Elijah was caught up, and all of us Christians will be caught up at the rapture and changed in the twinkling of an eye. But one thing we won't do is we won't ascend. The only person who's ever ascended into heaven under their own power and got there on his own power was Jesus Christ. No man hath ascended but the Son of Man, Jesus Christ. So ascend means to go up under your own power. Now, referring back to Isaiah 14, verse 13 and 14, which is talking to the devil, if you'll notice, there's lots of I wills in there. It's, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. So you see, right there's the problem. All those I will, which is the same as me. But when you get down here to verse 15, it says, "Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit." So bad news for Lucifer there. After all this, he will ascend. At the end of it, he's actually not going to ascend at all. He's going to hell. So these days, you have all of these NASA guys, shooting rockets to Mars, and they think that they're going to inhabit these other planets, I guess like Venus and Mars and others. And I don't believe that they're going to be able to do it, because if they did do it, we know exactly what they do, don't we? They would do on those planets the same as they're doing here. Well, they'd want to start a fight. And of course, they'd want to go to war. So can you imagine that? Instead of war just between countries, foreign countries, we would have war between the planets. So it would literally be War of the Worlds. Now, do you really think that God is going to allow a bunch of God-rejecting atheists out there in space, trashing the whole place up and starting fights and causing wars in space? I personally don't think that God is going to allow that. I think that he's going to keep us right here on this earth, and that's as far as we're really ever going to be able to go until he says so. Now, he may let us land something or maybe even people on other planets, even though I don't believe they have yet, but he may let them land on another planet. But before we can settle down and actually put people on that planet and start another war, I think he's going to clean up this planet first, and he's going to come back and get rid of all the ones that are God rejecting. So I think he'll clean up this earth from all the warmongering and atheists and God rejecting fools and scientists so-called here on this earth. He's going to get rid of all of them first before he allows anything like us to go out into outer space and trash that whole place up. So man is not going to ascend to any other planets anytime soon. So far, the only one who's ever ascended was Jesus Christ. Now we know before Jesus came down and was born, in the Old Testament, he did a lot of ascending and descending. We know this because in the Old Testament, he appeared many times as an angel of the Lord. So I hope this helps clear up John 3:13, where Jesus says, "No man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven." So now we know that ascending to heaven is on your own power, and nobody can do that but Jesus Christ. So we are going to go up. We are going to go up in that rapture. We're going to be caught up, but we're not going to ascend on our own power. Of course, we all knew that anyway. So I sure hope this helps. Hope it helped answer anybody's questions if they had it. I pray that God gives you wisdom to understand these things. And if you have any questions, please give us an email at truthseekers2012@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and God bless you.